friends, welcome back. Today we're talking about the Prix de Lausanne, also known as Prix, and we're talking about what it is. So if you've heard about this before but aren't really sure what it is, this is the video for you. The Prix, as I'm going to call it for the rest of this video, is scheduled to start on the 29th of January, and then the finals are scheduled on the 3rd of February this year, and there's an event also on the 4th of February. So what is the Prix de Lausanne? Prix is a week-long competition, but really it's so much more than that. So dancers are selected from around the world. Generally you have multiple hundreds of dancers applying, and I think they take a maximum of 78. Let me double check my notes. They take a maximum of, throughout the week, dancers will take classes in contemporary and in ballet. They'll have one-on-one coaching, they'll have rehearsals, they have dress rehearsal on stage. The week is really spent training, taking advice from different coaches. There's coaches who are watching dancers do their variations or their contemporary pieces for the first time, so it's really a chance to get a fresh set of eyes on your work. And they're judged, so throughout these classes they have a panel of judges. Now, I don't believe it's every single class or every single training that they do, but a lot of them do have a panel of judges there. So it's kind of unique in that it's not like you have one shot on stage, you're doing your choreography, and then you get judged on it. These judges are really looking at the dancers throughout the whole week. So how are they in class? How are they technically? How are they listening to the advice that they're given, the guidance they're giving? How are they working and interacting with the dancers around them? So they get a lot more information throughout the period of a week than throughout, that one instance in other competitions if you're just on stage for your 2, 4, 6 minutes, whatever it is, and then you're done. So throughout the week, the coaches, the judges, the teachers, they're all world-class, top of their field people in dance. And a lot of this week has to do with networking too. There's a lot of staff members, directors, artistic directors of companies, schools, second companies, so where you would do apprenticeships, that come out for the week, that will watch the dancers, that will watch the competition, and that will offer opportunities. This does happen in an official capacity, so once you get to finals, there are different bursaries and different opportunities that are given out to the finalists. But this can also happen in an unofficial capacity as well because of how much networking is going on. So I think there are dancers who may not make it to finals and may not win something at the competition, but have still caught the eye of a staff member or a director somewhere that feels like they're a good fit for either their school, their program, their second company, or a full-fledged company. So obviously, while it's incredible to win Prix and to get to the finals, it seems like the strength of the competition is really in the coaching and the networking. And of course, as a disclaimer, I say this without being a professional dancer myself or a professional dancer, so it really is from the perspective of a lifelong ballet nerd and audience member. So really, from an audience perspective, it seems like everyone benefits, which is awesome. Okay, so first question first. If I'm not a pre-professional dancer, I'm not a professional dancer, I'm not the directorship of any company or school, why would I watch Prix? And I think this is a great question. If you're getting into ballet, or if you're really into ballet, either way, the Prix de Lausanne is a great opportunity to watch dancers that are up and coming. So these are dancers that are pre-professionals, they're 15 to 18 years old, and they're right at the cusp of finishing their schooling and getting into company and professional work. Essentially, you're being introduced to these dancers who are right at the cusp of their professional careers, and it's really a bit of a launching off point for them. So firstly, it's amazing to watch people that are incredible at what they do. That's always just fun and inspiring to watch. But there's also the fact that a lot of the big names in ballet also competed in the Prix de Lausanne. So think of people like Stephen McRae, Mayara Magri, Carlos Acosta, Darcy Bustle, Precious Adams. I seem to be naming mostly dancers that are either English or have danced in England. But these big substantial names in ballet that did compete in Prix, and where Prix really was a launching off point for them to get into second companies or full companies and take their next steps in their professional careers. So imagine you were able to watch Stephen McRae at 16, 17 years old, I think, when he competed, and watch him then take his next steps in the professional world and follow his career through. I think that's so cool to be able to do. And it's definitely a benefit of being in the 2020s, where One, this competition is live streamed, so it's really exciting to actually be able to watch it, even if you're not in Lausanne, you're not in Switzerland. It's very cool that you can do that. But then also on the other side, you have dancers that do tend to have an online presence nowadays, some more than others. But if dancers are posting in a public way, I think it's really fun to be able to follow them on Instagram and follow their careers. Okay, battery change. I might have changed locations a little bit. Oh well. Prix is also a great opportunity to hear the commentary from the judges and from the coaches. Everyone has a different way of explaining things, or will pick up on different things, or might have a slightly different way of explaining the nuances of a character or of a variation. So this is a great opportunity to hear that from people who are top of their field, world class, and just in a very interesting context. If any of you guys take classes, you've probably had this experience. I've received tons of corrections that have made no sense to me. Definitely ones that I didn't know how to apply, or I didn't know really what to take from it or what it meant really. And then sometimes I've had corrections that have just clicked. There was something about the way it was explained, or maybe the way my mind was open to receiving corrections, or receiving corrections that were maybe a little out there, that it just clicked that day, and it completely changed my technique or how I approach something. So that's really what I'm getting at when I say that the commentary in the Prix is really interesting and that you can actually grab a lot from it. It's the classic, oh, I never thought about it in that way, or I never thought about that at all perspective. The last thing I'll add on here is that Prix is actually a great opportunity to find new variations, or to find variations that you like and that you might want to learn and try. Also, because Prix has a set list of variations that the dancers are allowed to do, you tend to see the same variations over and over again, which is actually a great thing. So something I've previously spoken about is developing your taste and kind of understanding of ballet, and that really does come back to exposure. And picking up on the nuances or the subtle differences is kind of hard when you're watching something one-off, but when you can watch the same variation over and over again, either back to back or a little bit spaced out, you start seeing those subtle differences between how different dancers will approach it, and you start seeing the strengths of different dancers and why it works really well with a certain variation or not. So it's a really great opportunity for that. Think things like technique, charisma, musicality, approach towards steps, even the slight variances in the actual variations themselves. Unless the rules of Prix say that they can only do one specific variation, then you might even see slightly different versions of the same variation. Okay, so now that we know what the Prix de Lausanne or Prix is, how does it actually work? Because there is a really specific outline. First off, dancers from around the world will audition via video. There are rules with Prix on exactly what has to be in the video, what has to be worn, what exercises they're doing, and then helpful tips on how to film the actual video itself. There are some dancers that will do a summer session with Prix and then will be pre-selected for the audition, but I think this is only a handful of dancers. Most of the dancers come from the video auditions. So then that year's jury will go through all of the video auditions, and then only 75 dancers will be selected to compete in that year's Prix, which is held at the end of January every year. Then these 75 dancers will arrive in Lausanne in Switzerland, and the competition usually starts on a Monday, so they'll compete Monday through the Friday, and then on that Friday, they will have selected 20 finalists to compete in the finals over the weekend. So at the end of finals, there's actually 8 prizes that are awarded, and these are kind of a mix. So you'll have contemporary prizes, classical prizes, and there's one that's an audience favorite, so it's voted by the audience. I think there's an online voting system and an in-person, if you're there in Lausanne, voting system as well. And the prizes are quite a mix. So there's some financial prizes, there are prizes that are a scholarship to a school, there are prizes that are a contract and apprenticeship with a second company, or a contract with a full company. So there's quite a mix of those prizes there. I thought it might be kind of fun to go through the list of variations that are there this year, so let's go take a look at my screen. So this is the Prix website. If you go up here, go to competition, The public information will kind of tell you when things are live streamed, when the doors are opened, and you can actually sit in the audience. So that we're looking actually at something else. We're going to look at the candidate information. Here we go. In registration, so there's registration information, and then you'll also see the list of variations, and that's what we're going to look at. Variations, for anyone who doesn't know, is basically a solo from a ballet or a solo from a contemporary work. It's called a variation. So you can click here to download the official classical audio files. You can do that for the contemporary as well. And then you can actually view the allowed versions of certain choreographies. So one of them this year, and you can see it here before we get into the actual list of variations, is the Pharaoh's Daughter variation. There's many versions of this, so I think for them to be able to actually compare for the jury anyways, and for ease of the dancers, they've selected this one. So it's the version that's choreographed by Pierre Lacotte and danced by Svetlana Zaharova, and that's the only version that will be allowed. So they're clearly going to send you the video so that you know what version you can do. Okay, let's go to, I'm gonna start with contemporary variations. I'm actually not as familiar with contemporary variations, and it's something I want to get a little bit more into. So again, Prix is a great way to do that because you now have a list. It's wonderful. So the girls, they always have a mix of gender neutral solos and then female and male solos. So girls A has Jorma Elo, first flash solo 1, plan 2B. I don't know that at all. I'm as to what it is. Kathy Marston, I've actually seen her pop up a lot lately. She's been doing a lot of stuff with the Royal Ballet, so I think I've seen her a little bit more on my Instagram feed and on YouTube from that. So it's Traces by Jan Tiersen, Christopher Wheeldon, You Turn Me On, I'm a Radio, song by Joni Mitchell, Elena Dombrowski, Tout Va Bien, from Very, and then Alicia Walker, Do You Care by Johannes Born. Okay, I don't actually know any of these. I do know two of the choreographers, so Kathy Marston and Christopher Wheeldon, but I'm not as familiar with the other choreographers, and I'm not familiar with any of these variations. So this is gonna be a great learning opportunity for me. For the male solos, of course, the first two gender neutral ones are the same. They also have a Kathy Marston variation, Liberame, Igor Stravinsky, okay. Christopher Wheeldon, Urge for Going, it's also a Joni Mitchell song. If we go over to girls B, and also for added clarification here, girls A, girls B, boys A, boys B, the differentiation is in age. So all the competitors are 15 to 18 years old. The A group tends to be 15 to 16, and then the B group is 17 to 18. So it looks like the variations are the same for the A and B groups, and then the variations are quite similar between the girls and boys. Let's go back and go to the classical variations. So this is going to be a little bit more in my wheelhouse. This is more what I'm familiar with. Again, A is 15 to 16 years old, so the younger side of the competitors here. They will have The Awakening of Flora, Hebe, the Goddess of Youth variation. So this variation is an excellent example of finding a ballet or finding a variation because of Prix. So the first time I ever heard of the Awakening of Flora was from Prix. And I think a big reason is because companies kind of don't do this ballet, and so you don't see it come up on annual programs, you don't really see rehearsals for it popping up on dancer socials. I've really only ever seen it in Prix and in Youth America Grand Prix, but you know, as a competitive variation. And to be honest, specifically in Prix. I'd be curious if anyone knows if there's any companies doing the ballet in full. I feel like it's just one of those ballets that's not really done. La Bayadère, so first soloist, second soloist from Kingdom of the Shades, Act 3. Yeah, those are there every year. You'll probably recognize it from the bun with the white material then attached to the wrist. And those we see pretty much every year. They're great variations. Le Corsaire, Gulnara, and Second Odalisque. Don Quixote Cupid variation, that's a fun one, we always see that. Giselle from the Peasant Pas in Act 1. Again, we always see that. Paquita, first and second variation from the Pas de Trois in Act 1. Okay. Sleeping Beauty, Bluebird, Woodland Glade Fairy from the prologue. Swan Lake, we have the first girl variation from the Pas de Trois. And then Talisman, girl soloist. So I actually don't know the Talisman ballet really at all. That's another one that I want to look into. It's on my list of I will look into this ballet at some point. But I also don't see a lot of companies doing the Talisman as a ballet. So I feel like the variation to compete with or to learn is more common than actually doing it professionally or going to watch a company do it professionally. If any of you know of a company, again, that does the Talisman, or if there's a video that I can purchase somewhere to watch it, let me know. Okay, and then looking at the boys. So boys A, again, 15, 16 years old. So Coppelia, the France variation, La Fille Mal Gardée, Colas variation. I actually don't know that one. Maybe I'll know it if I watch it, but I don't know it by the name of the variation. Giselle boy variation, yeah. Harlequinade boy variation. That's another one. I think I've seen ABT full. I don't know if I've seen very many other companies doing it in full, but it is another one where I have seen the variation be competed with, if that's the right way of saying it. People compete with this variation more often. Napoli, I have never seen this ballet. I am not familiar with it at all. Satinella, I'm not 100% sure what variation this is. It might be one that when I see it, I'll know it, but I'm not sure. It kind of makes sense that I'm more familiar with the female variations in ballet than the male ones, because growing up when we did variations, I would be doing female variations. Nowadays, I think if I was doing a variations class, I would actually love to do some of the male variations just to get the experience of both. And a lot of the male variations are very turn heavy and very jump heavy, and it's quite fun just to do something else. Why not? Sleeping Beauty, Bluebird, okay, Swan Lake, Black Swan Pas, Siegfried variation, and then James and Leslie. So a lot of these are quite kind of regular variations that we see a lot, with the exception of with the girls, I would say the Talisman is not one that I'm as familiar with. And again, this is just my familiarity with these variations. There's definitely dancers who are in the competitive space or pre-professional space more that will probably be very familiar with these variations, and are probably, you know, if any of them are watching this going, hey, why don't you know that? I don't know. Never got the opportunity to learn those ones. Maybe this year. That's one of the things I want to work on this year, is doing more variations. Girls B, so the B group, boys and girls, is 17 and 18 years old. So a little bit older, so you'll see that the variations kind of match that. So La Bayada Gamzati variation. This one is very big jumps, big personality. Coppelia girl variation from Act 3. Medora, Dulciana, Kitri, Queen of Dryads. So you're getting a lot of soloist and principal roles with the 17, 18-year-olds, as opposed to the 15, 16-year-olds is more solidly in the soloist realm, I would say. And then girls B, so you have Esmeralda. Esmeralda, I see this variation all the time. I learned the variation back when I was dancing more intensively, but I've never seen the ballet in full. And I don't know who does the ballet in full. So another one for you guys, if you know anywhere that I can watch the ballet in full, or anywhere that I can purchase, not a DVD. This is the thing. I always find companies or online someone that will sell a DVD of it, but I don't have a DVD player. Anyways, I would like to watch Esmeralda in full one day to get the full context of it, because I really only know the variation. Giselle variation, Paquita the lead variation, and then here's the Pharaoh's Daughter. So this is an interesting one where there's an added note here. You'll see in red font, so it's very clear that there's only the official version that is permitted, and there's a link to Vimeo to show that video. And this is the very specific version that they want the dancers to compete with. We don't see this for the rest of the variations, so you'll notice if there's slightly different versions of the variation, we might start seeing dancers competing with that and training with that during the week. But for this particular variation, they only want that one. And I think it's because the versions of that variation vary so widely that this just makes it very, very clear. there's the Raymonda variation, and then for Sleeping Beauty, they have the Act 2 and Act 3 variations. So again, more skewing towards principal roles, and that kind of makes sense with the age group. This is our B group, so they're 17, 18 years old. And then for the boys, we have from La Bayadère, the Soloist variation, Golden Idol variation, Le Corsaire, there's the boy variation from Le Pas, Diana and Acton, boy variation, the Don Quixote Basilio, Giselle is Prince Albrecht, Compa Classique is the boy variation. I'm almost a little surprised that Compa Classique girl variation isn't one of them, but they do have this list where they switch it up year after year. If I went back however many years and found all of the variations being used, there's a massive list of variations. So they do switch it up year to year. Okay, what else do we have? We have Nutcracker Prince variation from Act 2, Akita Grandpa variation, Sleeping Beauty, Prince Desiree variation. I really do like the Prince Desiree variation, so I think that's always a nice choice. La Sylphide, the James variation, and then Talisman, the boy variation. So again, with Talisman, I'm not as familiar with it. That's the variations list for the year. You can also see, if we go back into competition and public information, you can see that there's a schedule for the public, there's special events, and then live streaming. So if we go into the public schedule, it'll give you the day-by-day breakdown of what is available to the public. Now this also means both live stream, which is all done through Prixdelausanne.org, and I'll link that all down below. But it will also be available for audiences who are in Lausanne. So some people travel to Prix to go see things, some people will be there supporting dancers who are competing, some people might be local and want to go look at the competition, so that's that availability. So you do have to be kind of mindful if you're watching online only to check if that's something that's available for in-person only or if it's online. So you can see here, for example, day 1, the 29th of January, the schedule here they have on the main stage, and then in a studio, the girls A group will be running through their variations. Then on the stage, you'll have the boys A group that will be running through their classical variations. Then boys B will run through their classical variation, and then girls B will run through their variations. So the main stage is really used for dancers to run through it. It's really important that the dancers have the time to run through it on the stage for a few reasons. One, you can feel the space. It's going to feel different than your studio at home. It might be a different size. But another big one is that this stage is rigged. So it's set at an angle, which means it's going slightly downwards towards the public, and it's a very slight incline. It's not very visually noticeable, but it completely changes how you dance, and you really do need to get used to it. But to come into that in a competition, I think it's important that the dancers get a chance to try out the stage. And then in the studio, you see there's contemporary class, actually everyone has a contemporary class on the Monday. So you can actually go through each of the days and see exactly what is going on the stage, in the studio, with the groups and what they're doing. If we scroll up and public information, okay, so in special events, you can see here at the Beaulieu Theatre, this is open to the public, but not necessarily live streamed. So on the 30th of January, they're doing a meet and discuss with the jury. So people can go in, it's free, and then sit down and listen to the conversations that they're going to have. There is a choreographic evening, so an evening dedicated to the art of choreography, finals of the Youth Choreography Award, I think is what that is. On the 4th of February, they're doing a screening of the Prix. The Prix is the title of the film that was marking the 50th anniversary of the prize, so that's actually 2 years ago. This year is the 52nd iteration of the Prix de Lausanne, but they did do this whole film about the Prix. I would actually really like to see that film, so I hope that they make that available online. So on the 4th, they also have this Rising Stars event, so the best of the finals, which will reunite the finalists and prize winners of this year's Prix, along with guest dancers from previous years. And then they have a Dancing Through Time, and it looks like that's throughout the whole Prix. So it looks like there's an installation of photos and videos and archives that are going to be made available throughout the week. So that's something that, unless you're in Lausanne or going to Lausanne at that time period, you won't be able to see. That's too bad, but still pretty cool if you're in the area. Okay, so that's the Prix de Lausanne. I hope this gave you an idea of what it is and how it works and what you can expect expect. Remember that you can watch the live stream on prixdelausanne.org, and I'll have everything linked down below for you. So if you've never watched Prix before, let me know what your questions are, and let me know if there's anything that stood out to you if you did end up watching Prix. And if you have watched it before, let me know what you're looking the most forward to. If you're looking for something to watch in the meantime, you can take a look at this video where I talk about developing your taste and understanding of ballet, or you can come along with me to Toronto to go see the National Ballet of Canada's Onegin in this video over here. I'll see you in the next one. Bye!